Hello everyone and welcome back to Copper State Cresteds. Again, I'm Kaylee, the owner, founder, breeder, and pet extraordinaire. That's what we want to call it. Today we're going to be talking about enclosures. So options for you to keep your crested geckos in. I'm going to talk about what enclosures I've chosen, even though you can clearly see them, but I'm also going to compare why I've chosen them versus the other options that you'll have. I have used all of the options that I'm going to talk about in this video, and I hope that it helps you make your decision that's right for you and your geckos. And yeah, so let's talk about it. Okay, so there are three types of enclosures that I'm going to be talking about today. I do want to note that there is a fourth type, and that is PVC. Now, I'm not talking about it because I personally haven't had one, and I don't want to give you information that I haven't experienced myself, and that's not truly honest or, you know, my tried and true experimentation with something. So what I will say about PVC is they seem like a really great option, but they are expensive and they're hard to acquire. If you have a local expo to you, that obviously isn't going on right now, but if one starts back up and you have a PVC builder of an enclosure, there are a few out there. They are a really great option. They're lightweight from what I can tell, but they are expensive. But they're not going to be as expensive as like your glass enclosures. If you buy especially at a show or an expo, you won't have to ship. And shipping is a really big part of the expense on that. I looked into them, and in order to get a 4 wide cage that was essentially a 12 by 12 by 18, so these, it was going to cost me $125 or $150 to ship. On top of the cost of the $250. So very expensive option if you're going to have to be shipping, but they look really nice. I've heard people absolutely love them. They're usually made for arboreal species by a lot of crested gecko keepers. So it's a great option, but it's just not one I'm gonna really be talking about beyond this, just because I haven't owned them. Okay, so first option is probably what everybody is going to know about because it's what is in your pet stores. So that is going to be your pre-built arboreal species glass enclosures. These are by Zilla, Exoterra, and Thrive. Thrive is newer, a little bit of a more entry-level affordability, but also a little bit cheaper made, from what I can tell. They also only come in one size, which is that 18 by 18 by 24, I believe, and they're still pretty expensive. I think they're like 120 bucks for that. So I haven't really gone into those because I haven't owned them either, but that is an option. I believe that it's a PetSmart brand. Okay, but going into the main one that people know is Exoterra. Zillow makes a little bit more affordable option, but I also sometimes feel like it's a little bit more cheaply made. I've owned personally a Zilla, and I didn't like it because I felt like it was kind of cheaply made. But let's talk about the pros, let's talk about the cons, and go from there. Okay, so the advantages that I've kind of written down just from my own experience is that they come ready to go for a crested gecko. You don't have to change them, you don't have to build them out, you don't have to add ventilation, they're ready to go. So they're kind of like what you'd say plug and play, but for your animal. They have easy access, so the door opens, you're able to access them from the front. It usually covers most of the front, so you can get in there and grab your gecko pretty easily. They also are built vertically for arboreal species, which is really nice. They're literally made for geckos, essentially. And lastly, they have good ventilation. But on the flip side, they can have too much ventilation. So for someone like me who lives in Arizona, it's too much ventilation. I couldn't keep the thing moist enough. It didn't hold it throughout the night, which is kind of my goal. Do I wake up in the morning and still see some droplets in my tanks? Good, that's what I would like. And with these, I wasn't experiencing that. So I do know there's the option to add a glass top, but that is an extra expense. And one of the downsides of these tanks is their cost. So they're gonna run you $79.99 for the 12 by 12 by 18, I have it written down, And then $169 currently for the 18 by 18 by 24. That's the pricing right now. You can probably find them on sale. Sometimes your local reptile store will have them on sale just simply because they've been sitting for so long, or they got them at a discount, a wholesale price. So this is kind of just going off literally right now what I looked up. That's expensive. If you really truly want to get a full grown, large female, they take up a lot of room, and they do probably need that 18 by 18 by 24. If you're gonna really want to experience owning the gecko, watching the gecko, seeing it use its whole terrarium, you're probably gonna want that size. And at $169, to me, that's an expensive investment. Like, I did that for 4 of these, but they're an option because they're good looking. That's another kind of advantage of them, is they look really nice. They look really clean line. You can see every part of it, front, back, and center. And you're not gonna be looking through a tub with them. So you're able to really make them pretty. Side note, there is a bug flying around here that is not just a gnat, and it is driving me nuts. So I am very sorry. Okay, but let's go into the disadvantages and why I did not choose those for myself. I will say there are some big breeders that have invested in a full room of them, and they look gorgeous, but they're expensive. So that is my biggest downside. They're very expensive. If you own more than one gecko, that adds up really fast. But you can also find them secondhand. Most of the time you're gonna find them with like the vent has been melted because they've had a heating lamp on top. So that's another downside. The top is plastic. So if you need any kind of heating device, which I will say Crested Geckos, I do not recommend heating your Crested Geckos in any format unless it's winter time and it's incredibly cold in your house. So they often have that issue. It's a plastic top, which is another one of my disadvantages. The top screen can easily tear, it can get moved. If you have a cat, they are very dangerous for your gecko. I have a cat. I chose that it was not right for me to have a screened top. Granted, if you have them in something like this where your cat cannot get up there, you're fine. But most of the time, your cat's gonna try to. And if it gets up there, it gets claws into it, or even just the weight of your cat alone on top of that screen, it's gonna push in, and your gecko's gonna drop its tail, gonna get out, or worse, get killed by your cat. So I highly recommend those for cat-free homes, or you've set up a space that you're 100% positive your cat cannot get onto it or has no access to. I've seen so many horror stories of the cat got into my room, I never let it in there, something happened, X, Y, and Z. Just don't let it happen. Don't let it be a risk. Choose another option if you have a cat home and you think that you're going to have a place where your cat can access the tank. Okay, so the last one is the door can be a little bit wonky on those. They do have actual mechanics of that you might need to clean out if there gets dirt in it. And the little latch was why I hated it. Was like, I felt like it was always getting stuck, or I was almost breaking it, or the door was hitting it when I was shutting it. It was just, I kind of was always like fumbling with the door. So that's a consideration. The door can be a little bit wonky. So there's my upsides, my downsides. I owned one, I sold it, and I made a different choice for myself. So after I owned that, I moved on to tubs, because the initial investment, I was like, okay, tubs are what a lot of people are telling me about. They're affordable and they've got really great advantages. So let's go through them. The one advantage I really find is they're so affordable. They're almost all under 20 bucks. They're gonna be something you can get in bulk. You can get them easily. They're accessible. They're at your Target, your Walmart, your wherever you go. You can order them on Amazon. And they seal really well if you get the right tub. I recommend one that has a latch that actually comes up. I'm saying this as somebody who doesn't have a latch that comes up and actually clips on most of hers. I did fine with them, but I will say one of the things I didn't like was the fact that they were kind of flimsy because I didn't get the kind that latched on top. So I recommend getting a latch. The other advantages is they have a lot of sizes. So you can really kind of fit what your needs are. You can get a really big one if you only have one gecko, or you can fit your space. You can look for one that's extra tall. You can turn them forward facing, so you open it from the front. It's gonna take some, ingenuity to do that, but you can. and you can find what really fits your space. And then they hold humidity well. So you could choose how much you drill holes or add a ventilation. Mine don't really have a ton of holes because Arizona dries out really, really fast. But if you live in a moist climate that you're noticing your thing is staying wet all day, they're not getting a dry out period, drill a couple more holes. Super easy. And then they're easy to clean. It is so nice for big breeders to literally just take all their geckos out, put them in cups. They take all their cleaning stuff or their decor and clean it, put it in a tub, put it in a basin, whatever, with water, and then you can literally take them outside and hose them off. Granted, I never got to the point that mine were dirty enough to need to hose them off, but I could see the advantage of being able to just take them out and hose them with a power hose and get it totally clean, come back in, good as new. So, the disadvantages. So most of them don't have a lot of vertical height. There are a few that are narrow and tall, and I had a couple of them, but they don't stack super well. There are better ones that I think I just didn't have access to that I've seen on some of the forums that people use and they enjoy. So you can try and find vertical, or you can try and flip your thing vertically, but it's gonna take some, front screening type of setup that works for you. And another disadvantage is that you have to add the ventilation yourself. Some people find that daunting. I have a soldering iron, so it's not, a big deal. I can melt the holes, I can melt a cut, but it is definitely something that people struggle with. If they don't have one of those, they can be hard. I recommend drilling holes or getting a soldering iron so that you can actually cut out a vent and make them work for you. And then, they're hard to view your gecko. I had the clear ones and I still couldn't really view them. You have to take off the lid, check on your geckos, which led to another issue for me, was literally unstacking them. I had them each on a shelf in here, so they weren't even stacked on top of each other, but I had to take them off of the stacks to open the lid to look at my gecko, to check on my geckos. And when you have as many geckos as I do, which is, 20 plus, it gets exhausting. I was unstacking bins like all evening, I felt like. So for me, the cost benefit was not there to keep them in tubs, but I know big time breeders that do, and they're successful at it. And then, they're kind of tacky looking. If you have a stack of tubs in your room, it doesn't look as appealing, which was something I found important to me. But if you don't mind that, then great, save some money, go with a tub. Okay, so then I'm going on to my last one, which is glass aquariums. So I'm first gonna touch on just a glass aquarium, how it comes, how you keep fish in it. So the opening is on the top, you get a screen, you get some clips, because get some clips to hold your geckos in. I don't think that they're that great. They don't have a lot of height to them. The plastics, or the screen, not plastic, the screens that go on top are going to let out way too much of your humidity. You're gonna have a hard time keeping them moist in there. So I just said the word moist. That is like one of the worst words ever. I'm gonna go. Okay, as I was saying, with the top opening, I just don't really recommend you keeping it that way. I always recommend, if you're gonna do a glass aquarium, turn it vertically. So the advantages of glass aquariums is their price. They're gonna be way more affordable than getting one of the pre-built kind of enclosures. They're gonna be more expensive than tubs though. So they're kind of what I view as that middle price point, and obviously what I have chosen. They're easily acquired. You can get them at most of your pet supply stores. And you can also get them really easily secondhand, which means you're probably gonna save around 50%, but you're going to have to sterilize it, and make sure that you sterilize it really, really well. Get it home, do a little bit diluted bleach, scrub it down, let it sit after you've rinsed it a couple times. Okay, and then they're really good for viewing. Just like going with the Zilla or the Exoterra, they've got great viewing potential. You can see them, they're clear, they're glass. And they hold humidity really well, but on the downside, they could hold it too well sometimes. So one thing I will say is keep it in a room that does get good ventilation if you're going to go with this option. Now, if you're using a screen front and you're using clips on it, which is an option if you want to go vertically without having to get a conversion kit, but you're going to have struggles with, you can't keep substrate in it unless you get some kind of plexiglass bottom, and then you're going to lose a lot of humidity if you have a full, front that's open essentially. So I truly only recommend going with a glass aquarium if you're one, turning it vertically, and two, getting a conversion kit. So talking about the downsides of the glass aquariums is they're really heavy. They are pure glass, the whole of them, they're pretty thick, so they're gonna be heavy, gonna be harder to move. Okay, and then the other downside is obviously your added cost is going to be acquiring this front conversion kit. So when you do the math of how much these tanks cost me, I have 10 gallons over here, which I recommend for smaller males and juvies, your ones that you're growing out that are almost full size. I recommend 20 gallons, which you'll see right behind me, for your large females. So the pricing difference, I'll tell you, I go with Gecko conversion kits. I personally order the 4-pack, which means I save $20 off when you buy 4. So to get 4 conversion kits for 10 gallons, it is $100. That is a great price because when I divide it out, I ended up paying $35 for one of these. That includes the tank and the conversion kit. Then for the 20s, when I purchased them, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about, they cost me $50. So versus the $169 for an equivalent, I'm pretty into that. Here are my tips and tricks how to save yourself money. If you have multiple, order multiple. Get the 4-pack where it saves you $20. And then wait for the $1 per gallon sale. It's usually in the fall or beginning of the year. I believe mine was the fall, but watch for it. It's $1 per gallon. $10 for a 10 gallon, $20 for a 20 gallon. That is what I went with. I bought all of these out when this happened. It just makes so much sense. Or get them secondhand. Watch your Craigslist, watch your Facebook Marketplace, watch your OfferUp. They all almost sell them for exactly the $10 per gallon, so you can get them for around that price. This saves you a lot of money, but on the flip side, it's gonna take you a little bit of work. Okay, so the final thing I'm going to talk about is the items you need to put these together. So you're going to need a container of baby wipes. If you're doing it my way, have baby wipes on hand. Silicone gets really messy and baby wipes are literally perfect. They take it off your finger because I recommend using what you have, your finger. And you can wipe the glass clean if you make any mess with the silicone, which leads me to, you need aquarium safe silicone. I use Loctite, it's what they recommend by Geckos. And so I bought a 6-pack of it of 2-ounce, tubes, because I knew I would be doing a lot, and it was nice if I wanted to take a break and do it the next night. I could just toss out the tube I used before and they didn't, dry out. If you're gonna be doing a lot though, I would go back and I would get the calking gun with the large tubes that you just squeeze a trigger and it comes out. Because you'll see in the video of me installing it, I have to use a lot of force with my arms to be able to actually get it out of the metal tubing. And then last but not least is how you go about installing it. You'll see a lot of videos about different methods. I tried them all. I first watched videos, I tried them with the first couple. It was a complete disaster. Somebody said use gloves, put on, latex gloves so that you don't make a mess. No, the latex glove sticks to themselves and you have a hand that's stuck together and complete mess. Don't use gloves. Then they say you can tape off the edges to make sure if you go over it all that you don't ruin, your tank. Well, then I found that you have to pull it up right away or it's gonna dry over it and you're peeling up part of it, so you have to immediately take the tape off. Mind you, it took me 30 minutes just to get the tape on 4 of them. It's a lot of time for very little gain. And I found that just using your finger, you have a lot more control over the silicone, over where it goes. You can wipe it off if you get excess. It's just so much easier, so much cleaner, and it saves so much time. So if you want to keep watching, you can see how I install it. And I really hope that you love it. I'll also add, I'm not sponsored by I Heart Geckos. Like, I just really love their conversion kit. They have free shipping and they come to me fast. They were here like within the week that I ordered them. Their customer service was incredible. I went with the 1/8 inch thickness on these, and they are a little flimsy compared to the 1/4, but they save you a lot of money. So I originally had my first 4, 2 of them out of that came cracked. Still usable, I still use them, and they gave me 50% off my next order when I ordered 4. So I wasn't really upset about it. And Jeremy, I believe is his name that owns it, he was super responsive, awesome dude. And they also have the horizontal ones like you can see for my snake. They're really, really great options. They also come up into 29 gallons, I think. They've got smaller sizes like 2.5 and 5 gallons. They've just got a lot of options. So I hope this is really helpful. Continue to watch for my kind of tutorial. I hope it gives you a good idea and confidence to be able to do this yourself. So I'm trying to give you the best vantage point of how I do this. I keep my baby wipe on hand so that I can wipe off, and I'm gonna have to squeeze this. It's like toothpaste, so you know, go from the end and pray. I also like to make sure that we're kind of evenly placed in here. This is gonna be the bottom, so it needs to be a little bit closer. You have to kind of fill, there we go. Now, like I said, it's kind of a workout to squeeze this metal container for your arms. So I like to use my double hands. So I run it full length. And even that doesn't look bad, at least I don't think it does, but I still like to run my finger along it because you'll see how much smoother it makes it. Then you can kind of see and feel where you need a little bit more. The beauty of using your finger. So wipe off. You can feel how much pressure you're using. And that is how simple it is. The one thing I will say is always wipe off this rim right after. And it's literally as easy as that. Okay, we will continue. I could see somebody having issues if they have a shaky hand. Having kind of some arm strength does help with beating this. And look at me using my non-dominant hand. It's just so much easier using your finger. I think it makes it look so much smoother. It's like not even noticeable how smooth and clean lines it makes it compared to anything else. If you keep your angle where it's kind of pointing more into that corner, you're going to get a closer bond to where you want it. I feel like this also kind of pushes it closer into that gap and crevice to really kind of block it in there. And like I said, in this kind of this beginning, right when you put it down is really when you have your window of molding it. So you want to be a little bit quick about it. It just makes it so much smoother if you touch it and, you know, right after you put it down than if you're trying to mess with it later. I also find it easier to do it facing me instead of out. So that's why I've turned it around. And two hands just really helps keep even pressure flow on this, because as I said, it's like as you use your toothpaste, you have to roll up the end. Okay. Now I'm getting buildup, so I'm lifting so that I can make sure I have a clean finger. I'm not tracking that the whole way down. We'll also say that if you kind of push into the glass where the tip of your finger is touching, it will make almost a seal so it can't really run over and out and kind of spill over, which was happening right here. And I noticed it. That's why I kind of lifted and reset. The good news is you can still run this along it and kind of reset it. And we're back. My camera decided it didn't like that part, but I just ran my finger back along it and it really re-smooths it out. This one is done and super, super easy, as you saw. It did not take long. Now I will leave it to sit and not touch it with this down for 24 hours.